And joining us now, Maryland Congressman Glenn Ivey, a Democratic member of the House Ethics Committee. Good to see you again, Congressman. I understand you can't get into the specifics of this report or the proceedings connected to the investigation, but we heard Lindsey Graham say he doesn't know what the rules are on releasing something like this. So help us understand, what are the rules? Can it be done?
Well, you certainly have precedent for prior releases about reports from the Ethics Committee for members who have resigned or left the Congress. Former Congressman Lukens, for example, and I believe there was a congressman, I want to say it was Bonner from the mid-'80s, where that happened as well. So there's precedent for that. Can't really get into what's going on now, but the fact that someone has left the Congress does not mean that the report can't be released, or additional information for that matter.
So you say there's precedent, but are there specific steps that would need to be taken by the Ethics Committee if they were going to release this or any other report?
Well, I believe in the previous examples there were votes for Ethics Committee members with respect to the decision. So I think that's the big step. The other part here, too, though, is, and again, not speaking directly to what's in the Gates matter, but you got the Senate seeking the information so that they can meet their constitutional obligations. They've got a mandate to provide advice and consent with respect to these kinds of nominations. And there's no nomination more important than Attorney General of the United States. I mean, that's the person that controls the Supreme Court for the arguments before the Supreme Court, national security litigation, civil and criminal litigation here in the United States of America. It's a big deal. It's a big office, 110,000 employees. I think it's important for a position like that to receive the kind of scrutiny that I think the founders intended when they set this arrangement up.
Well, there are some Republicans, not on your committee, but some other Republicans, including in the Senate, who have suggested they would like to know what's in this report sooner rather than later. They don't want to be surprised if it does indeed get to the confirmation stage. So, again, without any details that I know you can't go into, do you believe that there is information that could be useful as the Senate goes about its constitutional duty?
Well, I think the senators should be able to make that decision for themselves. So I think transparency makes sense here. And, you know, I think in not only this nomination, but all of these types of Senate confirmation scenarios, they should have the chance to review whatever information they think is appropriate and draw their own conclusions, because, you know, these are critical positions. These are the people who carry out the mission of the United States in some instances. And here it would be in courts across the country. You know, I think the senators should have a chance to see what they want to see and then draw their own conclusions about whether it impacts their decision and their vote as to whether someone should be confirmed or not.
And you are right. These are all critical positions, and knowledge is power, not just for members of Congress or members of the Senate who will vote, but for the American people who want to know who is going to be leading them in very particular ways. So in that frame, can you tell us why the committee decided not to meet today when it was expected that the future of this report would be discussed?
You know, again, I want to be careful about getting into those details, but I will say that, you know, I didn't necessarily know what was going on with respect to the postponement of that meeting or scheduling a new one or whatever. It's still not clear to me, and I certainly haven't heard directly from the Republicans on that. So I really can't speak to it beyond that.
You do have particular knowledge of this position. You served as an assistant U.S. attorney working under Eric Holder. So big picture, Congressman, what do you think a Justice Department run by Matt Gaetz would look like for this country?
Well, you know, I'll say this. He and I both served on the Judiciary Committee, and we certainly had hearings where he called for the abolition, for example, of the FBI or ATF. I think in some instances he even heads towards abolishing the whole Department of Justice. I've seen him make statements like that. So, you know, it'd be kind of strange to have someone running an institution of that importance and significance that he's called for it to be abolished. And I'll say this, too. I mean, you know, from a policy standpoint, there's a lot of Republicans that I served with at the Department of Justice or know from my private practice days who I don't necessarily agree with on a policy standpoint, but I think they certainly have the skill, the experience, and the expertise to run the Department of Justice. It's a surprise that the Trump administration hasn't looked to bring in people of that caliber for a role this important and this significant for the American people.
Congressman Glenn Ivey, on a very busy day, thank you so much for being with us. Much appreciated.